Welcome back to Fin24 Budget 2015. We are now looking at how ordinary South Africans and investors and everybody else abroad sees our Budget 2015. With me in studio, I have Solly Muhing, Brand Reputation Specialist at Dunbarry, and I have Ghalib Khalant, Western Cape Provincial Coordinator for the Right to Know. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get right into our social media. We have been flooded with social media on 2015. Matomi Signolo says, we keep hearing that we should tighten our belts. Some of us have tightened so much, we cannot even breathe anymore. I think that is a general feeling of very, very many South Africans. Ghalib, what do you think?
I mean, listening to the minister, one appreciates that he was in a tough situation. So he's charted a very conservative line, it feels like. I think commentators have also responded around going to taxpayers and asking for even more tax. So the hike on personal income tax is I think, going to hit everybody. What are we getting in return is really the question. So clearly the minister's outlined a number of the spending expenditure by government. Question for me is, at local government level, particularly at the coalface where people feel government expenditure, I'm not so sure that we're seeing the kind of trickle down that we are wanting on the ground. An example, for instance, would be strengthening municipalities and spending 4.3 billion rand, not on service delivery, but on building capacity, and that I assume would be of municipalities. So to read a balance sheet, for example. So it talks about potentially how broken the system is, that we're spending 4.3 billion rand on fixing a system rather than, in fact, talking about how many houses will be delivered. At this point in time, we should
be talking about what is going to have an effect on the ordinary citizen in the streets of South Africa. Solly, what was your take on it? How would you say the ordinary South African citizen and those abroad have perceived Budget 2015?
I think government needs to send more positive, confidence-building messages out there. South Africans feel that they are being asked to do stuff, but when you look at government, when you look at the president, when you look at people at Eskom getting away with huge bonuses for delivering nothing, all those things are not sufficiently addressed in this. So we're saying, well, you government are asking us to tighten our belts, and that the tweet is very correct, but we don't say you're doing the same thing. You're not sending us the right messages. So government needs to go much further than making another press statement, which is what it is really. Yeah, which was very, very much what PR was spinning. Exactly. I think, in my view, all budget speeches must start with 5, 10, 20 minutes of what we promised last year and how we've managed to deliver on it. And we don't do that. So each year we start afresh with what is being promised. We never get to know all those billions that are allocated to different things. What has been delivered? Exactly. How have we delivered on what we have promised last year? We need to build confidence inside South Africa. We also need to build confidence for brand South Africa. There was a time when people just loved coming here, whether to visit or to spend money, to invest, right? People now ask different questions about South Africa. I've heard people say, you guys have become too ordinary. You're not special anymore. Because of the way we behave, because of how we perceived outside. So the government needs to maintain that positive image of South Africa by the way it does things. And we're not seeing that happening. Also, coming in again in what the perception of ordinary South Africans is, we have another comment. Tax increases so that ministers and MPs can get their 7% salary increase. There you go.
Although they are going to be spending 8% less on Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that's a big saving written in there. I mean, I think one of the things that stood out for me about the minister's speech was potentially just how out of touch our leaders are with ordinary people on the ground. So the joking one saw, for instance, in the speech, went around the cost of whiskey, going up by R3 a bottle, for example. And so leadership, political leadership, then can joke around that, because in fact it's, you know, a sort of in-joke. The impact of that on ordinary people, which is a much more serious thing, I don't think came through as clearly. One issue, for example, would be unemployment. Is one of the major, the minister even says, unemployment is one of the major issues facing South Africa, right? He spends, what, 5 sentences on employment rates. We're creating 224,000 job opportunities.
Sally, can I ask you, just to come in there, Khalib, can that be seen as being blasé about unemployment? Can ordinary South Africans see those 5 to 10 sentences as, you know what, we've resigned ourselves to the fact that this is unemployment and this is what we're doing about it, and that's it, let's move on? Is that what we're saying, Khalib? Is that what we're seeing? Every year we are saying, every budget speech, this is what we're going to do. And next year we'll come back and say, this is what we're going to do. And it's not just become such a part of the budget speech. You know what, let's move on.
Well, I think we South Africans have to take a level of blame. I think we're behaving like chickens. We've developed memories of chickens because we sit here all the time together listening to all these promises being made, but we don't go back to these people to say, well, this is what we promised, and precisely what I said earlier. So we need also to be a bit more activist in the way we approach government.
There needs to be some sense of accountability. Exactly. And I love the fact that you're saying is that every budget speech should start out with, this is what we promised last year and this is how we have delivered. Do you think that will make a difference, Khalib, into how ordinary South Africans perceive what government means with budgets every year?
I mean, I think it's for us as ordinary South Africans to in fact demand that of every single minister, of the president, that when they address us as a collective, that we hold them accountable. So it is up to us to say, what have you done for us lately, in the words of the sort of Janet Jackson song. Because we've elected them into those positions in order to serve the people of South Africa. And so I like this idea of holding them accountable up front. What was interesting for me, though, and I just want to say, was what was not said. Because in fact, a lot was said. And
there was a lot that was not said.
But there was a lot not said. And for me, one of the issues that was not said, and a big elephant in the room, was around communication. Communication got one line in the speech. Minister spent some time looking at some of the state-owned enterprises. The post office is in dire straits, is under administration, SAA, etc., etc. We didn't say anything about SABC. It's another state-owned enterprise. It's sucking up money from the fiscus, and we're not getting the public broadcaster, in fact, that we deserve. So a large thing that's absent from this, something very specific for the right to know, is our access to information.
Yes.
And so ordinary citizens' access to information, and that can be through the public broadcaster, but also community media. We'd made demands year upon year upon year.
Again, there's no accountability for it, so nobody has to come back to us and say, what we promised you last year, we actually have or have not delivered. Sorry, before we end, I want to know from you, how is Brand SA being perceived after SONA 2015, State of the Province and Western Province 2015, and Budget 2015? How is Brand SA being perceived?
Well, Budget 2015 is a promise, is a set of promises. So we need to wait and see what's going to be done about those. And like you said, the promises do not go far enough. I would like to have seen government on Eskom for it. Eskom is not able to carry the load on its own.
Yes.
Excuse the pun. They need assistance. Government needs to say, maybe 60% of our power, electric power, must come from Eskom, and 40% we must create more room for independent power producers. Then we'll see these guys coming in. There are many people out there in the private sector who have the capacity to come in there and contribute to lightening the load on Eskom, as it were. And government is not doing that. So if when government starts implementing these promises, then we'll start getting excited or not. But it's too early now to
start making
progress.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much.